Let me elaborate a little bit on the door structure of the vehicles, and these vehicles in general had a lot of wood, Ford and Chev both. A lot of them did back in the day. This one's a 1928, and when I went to do the repair of the doors, which there wasn't a lot of metal repair to do, found out there's a lot of wood in them, which I didn't realize there was so much wood, but they're all wood. And the window regulators were actually fastened to wood frame. They're all dadoed out, and somebody went through a lot of time. They must have had jigs, be like somebody built a set of kitchen cabinets, like the woodwork that you would have had to do. They would have had carpenters on site to build this stuff. And it was all dadoed out and finger jointed, and it was all done in oak, but I didn't have the heart to throw it out. I kept it all. Somebody may be restoring one back that they're going to put the wood back in. Well, these would be good templates for them. And you'll find that when you go through stuff later on in life when you're building stuff, that there's a lot of stuff you just can't throw out. I'm bad for that, but my shop shows it. I remember reading a book on Henry Ford, Louis Chevrolet, and all them back in the day. And one of the articles that I read on Henry Ford was, we were talking about the wood inside of the doors of the Chevrolet. Well, Ford also had them. And you can imagine when they were building them cars, millions of Ford Model A's and T's going out, all these wood panels that they were cutting inside, there was a lot of waste wood. There was literally piles of waste, little bits and pieces. And Henry Ford thought it seemed to be an awful waste of material. So he got together with some other people, chemists or whatever, and they actually come up with the recipe for modern day charcoal. And that's basically where it come from. Somebody may find this hard to believe, but just research it online. And I don't know the exact features of it all, but I remember that charcoal thing coming from Henry Ford. It was 28 version of recycling back in the day. Unbelievable. But getting back to the 28 Chev that I'm doing here, when I first brought this home, for those guys that are out there, it's easy to get overwhelmed if you're building a car. You look, I think, oh my, geez, I got to do this car. I got to do this to it and this to it. Take it one piece at a time. When I brought this car home on a trailer, literally in boxes. The fenders were off it. Like I say, no nuts and bolts together to it. It was all in pieces. I brought it in the shop and I mocked it all up to see what I had and what I didn't have. Make a list of what I needed. And then start picking away at it. Put the motor in. I had to build mounts because the frame had been boxed, but the mounts were never put back in. Mount the transmission mount. Rear end, make sure that's all centered up so when we hook up drive shafts and stuff, you're not binding up. And you go through that process and then put the front end together, put the fenders on, the back fenders on, so you got all your clearances for the wheels and what am I missing? And again, you're jotting this all down. I need to buy wheel nuts. I have to get this. I have to get brake parts. And you do a list. And you start cutting at that list. Every couple of weeks you're going by, you got a budget. You got 20 bucks or 25 bucks. Okay, I'm going to buy that rotor. You get the rotor. Don't need it right now. Later on down the road, you're going to need it. But if you get an extra 50 bucks, mom's getting you something for your birthday. Mom, I need rotors for my car. You know, and that's the way it goes. My wife gives me, they all give me cards now, either Canadian Tire or whatever, bank card for 50 bucks, because I can buy what I want. And usually it's for my car or one of my vehicles. I have another one on the other side, a 53 Chev that I've had way too long that hasn't gotten finished. Not that I'm not working at it. Again, I've got parts over there that I bought back probably 10 years ago. I brought back from Florida, all the front end stuff for it and all that. It was get it here, so when it's ready, I have it. I can put it together. It's money I spent back then. I don't have to slip into my wallet now and take it. I had a few extra bucks, maybe sold a car, picked up $1,000 or something, and that was my little treat to me. With building a car, it can be very overwhelming when you first look at it. If you've never done one before, myself, I've done them basically my whole life, going back to when I was doing collision work, repairing cars for the dealerships and so on. You'd get a car pulled into the shop, frame all bent on it, you had to put a roof on it, quarter panel, a door and a fender. Back in the day, you repaired a lot of stuff that today would be wrote off. There's no question about it, but we repaired a lot of vehicles. And I guess I got used to the idea that if I had a job that came in through the door was 50, 60 hours, it was a good job to me. I knew I was going to be there for at least that week, and we worked flat rate, so I made good money on them. But the time frame, when I look at them today, like these hot rods that I drag home, some people look at it. One fellow, as a matter of fact, was here the other week and said, why would you spend all that time in that car? Like, how do you justify that? And my answer to that is because I can. I enjoy doing it. But for the average Joe to look at that, it's so overwhelming. And again, one piece at a time. You know, go at it. This car, when I started, like I said, it was all in pieces when I brought it home. I tore the wood out of it. The wood and the regulators and stuff that were in the car, they weren't conducive to what I wanted to do, so I took it all out. I ended up putting power windows in it, which was an easy do because you can buy all the pieces so readily available online now. Amazon. Go on Amazon, research it. I think it was $190 for 2 regulators delivered to my door. Plug and play. You know, you got to brace them up a little bit, but they're user-friendly. They're built. There's a straight up and down on these cars. Not like they got to come up and go back an inch before they seat into place. They're just straight up and down. And it makes for an easier build. And again, with this car, the fenders and so on were really good. Very minimal patchwork on this vehicle. 2 front quarter panels I had to patch. But when I got the wood out, the wood had caused some rot around the windshield. The pillars had to come out. The back fenders were same thing, basically no visible holes in them. They were just basically dents. Pick and filed, old school, pick and filed some dents out of them. Stripped them to bare metal on the outside and reprimed them up. Blocked them all out, which is block sanding, which we'll go through later on down the road of how to prep a fender or a door so it's, when you're done with it, it's smooth. This car is painted with spray bombs. Black lacquer because I don't know what color I want to paint it yet. And I thought, well, I'm gonna paint it because I want to drive it. So I went and I started looking around. You can't buy the old school black lacquer like you could be years ago by the quart because of lead bases and so on in the paint. So I went to Canadian Tire, done a little research on their spray bombs, and they're actually black lacquer. So I brought a couple home and I experiment with them. I ended up going through a few cans of it at 20 bucks a can, but I've got a paint job that cost me probably 450 bucks. So when I'm done, the car is black, it's painted, and if I decide I want to paint it blue, green, yellow, whatever, block sand that black, paint it whatever color I want. The car is ready for another paint job. So it just, I don't want to sit around with the bare primer on it. Primer is porous. Primer will suck up moisture that's in the air, even this newer stuff if it's sitting around. If I got to put this car out for a couple of days, do repairs on my car, my other one I'm driving, or my wife's car, this is going to have a cover on it, but still you're moving it out to the outside elements. So I want it sealed, and that's it. Some of the stuff that came with it, the headlights bracket and so on, was all there. The red shroud, which had a few dents in it, I stripped all the paint off of them, and again pick and filed a lot of stuff out of them that was in them. And the bracket that holds the headlights was damaged. I welded that up, cleaned it up, and they're just sprayed with spray chrome, basically. I mean, it's just to dress them up a little bit. The engine is a V6 out of an 85 Chev half-ton truck, which was, back in the day, they were I think 85 and 86. I could stand corrected on this. If somebody has a different opinion, they can send it to me. It's a V6 engine with a 4-barrel carburetor and headers from the factory. V6, it runs good. 3-speed transmission in it. Works great. That's the way it's going to stay. The radiator that's in it is an older radiator. I don't know that it would be an original core. It doesn't leak. It's in there, and I will probably put a new core in it. Right now, it's quite expensive. It's a $700-800 project to put that in. I'm going to run it as it is for now, just because I'm not planning on making long trips with it. It had a Mustang front end put under it back today, Mustang 2, and it had 4-bolt wheels on the front and 5-bolt 9-inch rear end in the back. So I done some research, wound up calling Horton Hot Rods in the States, and I bought a kit that came with the rotors, all the bearings, brake drums, whatever adapters I needed to fit that front end, so I could put 5-bolt forward wheels front and back, so I don't have to carry 2 spares if I'm going tripping somewhere. So that worked out really well. And a friend of mine had wheels, as it turned out. We got talking one day. He said, I got wheels up in the attic of my shop. Another guy like me, another hot rod collector. And he said, I'll sell them to you. And he sold it to me really right. You know, we do trade off. And that's what you'll find with the guys in the industry. Sometimes money's not an issue. It's just, if you need it, it's yours. We do it all the time. They're a great bunch to deal with, great bunch of guys. The tail end of the car, as you can see, has a different bumper. It's actually a front bumper off a 1953 Chev. I built a small Continental kit to carry the spare, because the spare tire, there's no place else to put it, and the battery is in front of it in that stainless steel box that I fabbed up there. And it's all bolt-on. It can all come off to do any, if you need to do any repairs or anything under there. When I was gathering up parts for the old car, I was online looking for parts and so on, and one day I happened to go on Marketplace, and I saw an ad on there for the gauge that you see sticking out of the top of the radiator, and it was locally, it was Wellington. So I called the guy and went over to look at it, and I went into a shop, and he total Ford guy. I think that was the only part in his shop that was Chevrolet. He wanted a firm dollar for it, and I never budged on it at all. I gave him what he wanted for it, but it turned out to be a really interesting conversation for the afternoon, and another hot rod buddy gained. Then he sold me a couple other little pieces that I needed for hold-down brackets for the hood that are Ford, but they will work on this, and he practically gave them to me. Like, we formed a relationship that quick, and he helped me out. There was no question about it. But it was neat to have that. The only thing in his shop that was Chevrolet was that thermometer. I have a plate in the house. 1976, when Queen came to Canada, she was in Halifax. I have the plate off of her car, off of her limo, one of the license plates. How cool would that be on front of that car? Call it Queen.